Hey everyone, welcome back. Or if you're just joining us, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I am Spencer.
And I'm Katie.
And in this episode of our series on the drug war, we're going to be talking about things that can be done instead. So, to start that off, we're just going to make a statement here. Continuing the drug war is not a very viable option. So what else can we do?
Well, let's talk about increasing our police force funding and how that impacts the drug war, drug use, etc. So, increasing police funding does nothing to address the issues of addiction. It only leads to more incarcerated people, not people receiving help for addiction. And additionally, increasing police funding ends up leading to more of a conflict between communities and their police force, as is often seen as threatening rather than feeling safe with more police around. And a better solution is to use funds that would otherwise be allocated towards the police to fund social programs such as detox centers, rehabs, and programs that monitor and promote safe drug use.
Another option would be to decriminalize drugs. It would help lower the cost due to incarceration/criminalization. We could then focus on rehabilitation and or helping people who are struggling with substance abuse. A step in the right direction, for sure, but not all the issues of the drug war or the drug epidemic would be solved under this policy. And not denying it wouldn't make things better, but I want our country to be the best.
I'd agree with that. So let's talk about legalizing drugs. This would put cartels and gangs out of the drug business, or at least significantly decrease their business over the American black market. And it would also decrease their power in the American black market. And this would also help prevent many overdoses, as drugs sold on the legal market would have to be heavily regulated. No more overdoses because you don't realize your drugs are laced.
And personally, I'm all for legalization, but having heavy regulation with that, especially on the drugs that have been shown to have higher addiction potential, and developing programs to help those who use those higher risk drugs. Just like marijuana and some over-the-counter medications, such as pseudoephedrine, have purchasing limits, we could, and if we were to legalize drugs, in my opinion, should institute policies similar to those.
Yes. And additionally, we could tax the sale of these drugs, just like we do for nicotine, alcohol, and in legal states, marijuana. And we could increase our GDP exponentially. And I also would want to mention, this is just what I think. If we did legalize drugs, we would sell them in specific stores, and we would, have the person behind the counter would be trained and educated in safe drug use, so that if the person purchasing had any questions, they could be answered right there in the store, and it would also lead to safer drug use.
I agree with that as well. And then we could start more social programs, refer addicts to treatment instead of jails if they're not committing any other crimes.
So let's address some concerns here. Some people might say that if drugs are legal, everybody's going to start taking drugs and be non-productive, and just like the homeless. So first of all, most people don't do drugs solely because they're legal. And even if they did, you can make the same argument against alcohol. Why allow people to drink if there are people who become non-productive off of it? The truth is that whether or not someone is contributing to society is hardly based off of whether or not they use drugs or alcohol. It can depend on how much they are using it, but that's why we need more and better quality treatment programs in the United States. People can become non-productive due to any addiction, including food addiction, shopping addiction, gambling addiction, sex addiction. Should we ban all of these things as well? Prohibition also does not prevent the majority of drug users from using drugs. All it does is make it less safe and regulated, as we saw with the prohibition of alcohol. And honestly, just thinking of this now, you could even make the same comparison with abortions as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And while I guess I can see that being a valid concern, I do find that hard to believe that people who don't do drugs now would all of a sudden start using because they became legal. While there definitely may be people who want to try them now that they are legal, I personally feel a majority of people who are going to use drugs will use them regardless of their legal status. And there's conflicting evidence on whether or not the legalization of marijuana has led to an increase in its use from people who weren't using it before. And I feel a major issue with any of those surveys is the fact that a majority of people will not and would not admit to having used marijuana prior to legalization due to potential legal troubles leading to skewed results. But that doesn't inherently mean that it didn't lead to increased use. It's just important to consider the limits of these surveys, especially when attempting to use them to make claims.
Yes. And so now we're going to talk about the legalization of drugs and increase in crime rates. That's the next concern people might have. So we're going to look at legalizing marijuana. This is an article from MMP. Legalized marijuana has not led to an increased crime rate, but it has instead led to a decreased crime rate. So in this article, let's see, government published data, academic research, and the experience of many law enforcement officials indicate that marijuana policy reform does not increase crime rates. Relying on statistics from the FBI's Uniform Crime Reports, peer-reviewed studies have analyzed changes after passage of both adult use legalization and medical marijuana laws. Contrary to assertions made by some opponents of legalization, there is no compelling basis for claims that legalizing marijuana and establishing regulated markets undermines public safety. For medical marijuana, multiple analyses have concluded that these laws are not linked with increases in violent crime or property crime. In fact, researchers from RAND discovered a negative and significant relationship between dispensary allowances and property crime rates. So, meaning that they are going down due to the legalization. So, other studies also point to marijuana policy reform as public safety benefit. In a 2018 analysis, experts at Washington State University found that police solved significantly more violent and property crimes after the passage of legalization laws in Colorado and Washington. Another peer-reviewed paper in the Economic Journal supports the argument that legalizing marijuana reduces crime by displacing illicit markets traditionally controlled by drug cartels and illicit distributors. All right. And then from Statista, we've got a little image here. So let's look at it real quick. Then and now, Portugal's drug decriminalization. Overdose deaths 1999 were 369, in 2016 goes down to 30. So it decreased by about 90% or so, a little more than 90%. And then new HIV diagnosis due to injecting, 2,907, and in 2017 we have only 18. And then the number of people incarcerated for drug offenses in 1999 was 3,863. In 2017, it was 1,140. So we can see here that overdose deaths, HIV diagnosis, and incarcerated individuals for drug offenses have all greatly decreased since Portugal's drug decriminalization. And then if we didn't reach out to them or go to, here's just something they said as well. So if we didn't reach out to them or go to the places where they're using, nobody would know they exist. Jonah Frias, a 26-year-old nurse working as part of the task force from the Portuguese harm reduction policy toward Fonseca. We don't judge them in any way. If they want to, in their own time, we can help them stop using. Under the 2001 law, drug dealers still go to prison, but anyone caught with less than a 10-day supply of any drug is typically sent to a local commission, which consists of a doctor, lawyer, and social worker, where they are educated on treatment and available medical services. And no distinction is made between hard or soft drugs where the drug use happens. What matters is whether the relationship to the drug is healthy or not. That is very important. Yes. They are also respectful of the patient's decision of whether or not to quit at that moment, or if that's a decision that should be made at a later time.
And then another concern, I guess, that people also may have is cartels. And with that, there is no way to fund police enough to catch and disassemble every cartel, gang, and dealer out there. The best way to get rid of these things, as we saw in that Portugal article, is to create a legal, or was it the
Yes.
Portugal one, right? Yeah, Portugal article. The best way to get rid of these things is to create a legal market for the products they sell, which is primarily
Although in
drugs.
Portugal,
And
sorry, I do want to point out, in Portugal, it's only decriminalized. It's not legal.
oh, okay.
But
But even
decriminalization,
decriminalization helps
yeah,
them
that
too.
does lead to better numbers for sure still.
Okay. And then because we live in a capitalist society, the most powerful thing we could do to take away power from cartels and gangs is to take away their market share by providing legal access to products previously sold on the black market.
All right. So, how it would be better to stop it? So, the best way to stop the drug war is to legalize and heavily regulate drugs. It would eliminate a lot of the street, gang, and cartel violence that is committed over drugs, and proper regulation would prevent a lot of overdoses from laced and strong drugs. We can see examples of this from places such as Portugal and with our state's marijuana reform laws and policies.
And in our final video, we will be giving our personal thoughts and bringing all of this information together. So join us in that video as we evaluate the credence of the drug war. And as always, you can leave a comment below if you have any topic ideas that you want to hear us go over or discuss in future episodes.
You can reach out to us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We also occasionally do some Twitch live streams, so make sure to follow us there so you can get notified when we do.
And don't forget to like this video, as well as follow or subscribe to the rest of our social media accounts so that you get notified, as long as you turn on notifications, of any of our future content that we put out there to share with you guys. Otherwise, we will see everyone in the next video.